The Substitute Omega. Chapter 1. The Substitute Groom. I never thought my life would turn into someone else's shadow. My name is Julian, older by 5 minutes than my twin brother, Jason. People used to say we looked alike, but only on the surface. Where Jason's smile was bright and effortlessly charming, mine always seemed to fade into the background. He was the adored son, the golden child. I was the one tolerated, overlooked, quietly existing on the edges of my own family. It wasn't that I was weak. Far from it. Unlike most Omegas, I wasn't fragile or submissive. I carried the rare bloodline of an SS-class Omega, stronger than many Alphas, with a body built for endurance and a mind sharpened by years of silence. But none of that mattered. My parents only saw Jason's beta designation as something worthy of pride, praising him as if he were heaven's greatest gift. Jason will lead this family one day, my father would say, his voice warm with pride. And Julian, he'll manage somehow, my mother would add with a careless laugh. It hurt. But I learned to stay silent. Now, standing in front of the tall mirror, dressed in wedding robes that were never meant for me, I wondered if fate had a cruel sense of humor. The reflection staring back looked every bit the perfect bridegroom. A snow-white ceremonial hanbok embroidered with gold thread draped elegantly over my frame. A jade clasp held the collar neatly in place, and my dark hair was tied back with a silk ribbon. Delicate. Composed. Beautiful. A lie. This wasn't my wedding. It was supposed to be Jason's. The memory of that morning still burned. Jason had walked into the living room as our parents finalized the wedding arrangements. His expression was casual, far too casual for what he was about to say. "Father. Mother," he began, as if discussing the weather, "I don't think I'll marry Adrian Blackwood after all." The room went still. My mother's teacup rattled violently against its saucer. My father's face drained of color. "Do you understand what you're saying?" my father demanded, voice shaking. "You're breaking off a wedding with him." Jason shrugged, completely unbothered. "He's boring. Too rigid. No fun at all," he said with a lazy smile. "Besides, I found someone else. Someone who actually loves me." My stomach dropped. Adrian Blackwood wasn't just anyone. He was a powerful alpha, a man feared in the underworld and respected in equal measure. Cold. Calculated. Untouchable. Rejecting him, on the day of the wedding, was no different from courting death. Then my mother turned to me. Her eyes were sharp. Cold. "Julian," she said quietly, "you will take Jason's place." My breath caught. "What?" I whispered. "Do you want this family destroyed?" my father barked, slamming his hand against the table. "Do you want Adrian Blackwood's wrath to fall on us?" Jason crossed his arms, watching me with amusement. "You've always wanted to prove you were better than me, haven't you?" he said, tilting his head. "Well, here's your chance. Let's see if you can survive being married to him." Something inside me cracked. My hands clenched at my sides, nails digging into my palms. "I will never forgive you," I said, my voice low but steady. "Not him. Not my father. Not my mother. None of them." And now, here I was. The music began. Each step I took echoed through the grand hall, petals scattering beneath my feet. Hundreds of guests turned, smiling, whispering, admiring the groom walking down the aisle. None of them knew the truth. None of them knew I wasn't Jason. At the end of the aisle stood Adrian Blackwood. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Dressed in black. His presence alone commanded the room. When his dark eyes lifted to meet mine, something in his expression softened. Warmth. Affection. Love. My chest tightened. That look. It wasn't meant for me. The ceremony passed in a blur. Vows spoken. Rings exchanged. Applause thundered around us. I smiled when I was supposed to smile. I nodded when I was supposed to nod. I played my part perfectly. And when Adrian leaned in, I froze. For a fraction of a second. Then his lips met mine. Warm. Firm. Certain. My heart betrayed me, skipping wildly in my chest. This isn't real, I told myself. This isn't yours. That night, the illusion began to crack. The wedding chamber was quiet, filled with soft candlelight and silk drapes. I stood near the bed, my fingers trembling as I adjusted the jade clasp at my collar. The door opened. Adrian stepped inside. His movements were slower than usual. His cheeks faintly flushed. His eyes darker. He had been drinking. "Jason," he murmured, voice low, rough. "Finally, you're mine." The name hit like a blade. I opened my mouth to speak, to tell the truth, to stop this before it went any further. But no sound came out. He closed the distance between us. His arms wrapped around me, strong and unyielding. The heat of his body, the weight of his presence, it was overwhelming. "Wait," I tried, my voice barely a whisper. But he didn't hear me. Or perhaps, he didn't want to. His lips brushed against my neck. My breath hitched. Panic surged through me. I can't. And then the air changed. Heavy. Thick. His alpha pheromones flooded the room, pressing down on me from all sides. My knees weakened, my vision blurring as my body reacted instinctively. I collapsed backward onto the bed. Adrian stilled. Something shifted in his expression. Confusion. His gaze sharpened. "This," he muttered, leaning closer. "This isn't right." His hand gripped my waist, steadying me. Then his eyes flickered, locking onto something. A faint scar near my hip. Recognition struck. His entire body went still. "You're not Jason." The words were quiet. Deadly. My breath caught in my throat as I clutched the sheets around me, trembling. His gaze pinned me in place. Cold. Unforgiving. "Who," he asked slowly, "are you?" Silence filled the room. And for the first time that night, I realized there was no escaping the truth. Chapter 2. The truth between us. The silence stretched so long it became suffocating. I couldn't breathe under the weight of his gaze. "Who are you?" Adrian repeated, his voice lower this time, controlled, but no less dangerous. My fingers tightened around the silk sheets, my entire body trembling. Running was impossible. Lying would only make things worse. So, with a shaking breath, I told the truth. "My name is Julian." His eyes didn't leave mine. "I'm Jason's twin," I continued, my voice unsteady. He refused the marriage this morning. My parents, they forced me to take his place." Each word felt like a blade cutting deeper into my own chest. I had no choice. The confession fell into the quiet room, fragile and exposed. Adrian said nothing. He simply stared at me. For a moment, I thought he might explode, rage, violence, something terrifying enough to match the man everyone feared. But instead, he turned away. He ran a hand through his dark hair, exhaling slowly, as though trying to contain something far more dangerous than anger. "Betrayal. That coward," he muttered under his breath. I flinched. "I didn't know," I said quickly. "I swear, I didn't know he would do that. If I had." "Enough." The single word cut clean through my explanation. I fell silent instantly. Adrian stood still for a long moment before finally facing me again. His expression had changed. The warmth I had seen earlier, the love meant for someone else, was gone. In its place was something colder. Sharper. More distant. "You expect me to believe," he said slowly, "that you were dragged into this without any resistance?" His eyes narrowed slightly. "That you just agreed to marry a stranger in your brother's place?" Shame burned through me. "I didn't agree," I whispered. "I was ordered." His gaze hardened. "And you obeyed?" I had no answer to that. Because it was true. The silence that followed was different this time. Heavier. Not filled with confusion, but judgment. I forced myself to meet his eyes, even as my heart pounded painfully against my ribs. "You can expose me," I said quietly. "Tell everyone the truth. I won't stop you." My voice trembled despite my effort to stay calm. "You have every right to." Adrian studied me carefully, as if weighing something unseen. "Do you know what would happen if I did?" he asked. I swallowed. "Our family would be ruined," I admitted. "And your reputation would suffer." A humorless smile touched his lips. "So you do understand." He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, filling every corner of the room. "I was abandoned," he said, his voice low and steady. "On my wedding day. In front of hundreds of people." Each word landed with quiet force. "And now, I find out the man standing in his place is a substitute." My chest tightened. "I didn't want to deceive you," I said, barely above a whisper. "But you did." I closed my eyes briefly. "Yes." Another long pause. Then. "I won't expose you." My eyes snapped open in shock. "What?" Adrian turned away, walking toward the window, his silhouette framed by the dim light outside. "My humiliation is not something I will display for the world to see," he said calmly. His voice carried no hesitation. "To them, nothing has changed. You are still my spouse." My heart raced, unable to keep up with the sudden shift. "You're letting this continue?" "For now." He glanced back at me, his expression unreadable. "But don't misunderstand." The air seemed to grow colder. "This changes everything." I lowered my gaze. "I know. And there will be conditions." I nodded immediately. "Anything." The word slipped out before I could stop it. A flicker of something passed through his eyes, too quick to name. "Don't make promises you don't understand," he said. "I mean it," I replied, forcing myself to meet his gaze again. "I'll do whatever you ask." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Adrian sighed softly, as if coming to a decision. "I won't touch you," he said. The words caught me off guard. "Not unless you allow it." I blinked. You don't belong to me," he continued, his tone firm. "Not in the way a marriage implies." Something in my chest tightened unexpectedly. "This arrangement," he added, "exists for appearances. Nothing more." Relief washed over me. Sharp. Immediate. And yet, strangely hollow. "I understand," I said quietly. He moved toward the bed, stopping a few steps away. "You can sleep there," he said. "What about you?" I asked without thinking. A faint, almost amused exhale escaped him. "I've slept in worse places." Before I could respond, he picked up a blanket from a nearby chair and walked toward the sofa. The distance between us felt deliberate. Final. That night, I lay awake far longer than I should have. The events of the day replayed endlessly in my mind: Jason's betrayal, my parents' coldness, the weight of the vows I never meant to take. And Adrian. His restraint. His anger. His unexpected mercy. I turned slightly, my gaze drifting toward the dim outline of him on the sofa. Even in the darkness, his presence was impossible to ignore. A stranger. A man I was now bound to. A man who had every reason to hate me. And yet chose not to destroy me. My chest tightened. I pulled the blanket closer, trying to quiet the unfamiliar feeling stirring inside me. This wasn't love. It couldn't be. Not like this. Not after everything. Still. As sleep slowly claimed me, one thought lingered in the back of my mind. Maybe this marriage. This unwanted, forced, broken marriage. Would not be as simple as I had believed. Chapter 3. A House of Strangers. The morning after felt unreal. For a brief moment, as my eyes fluttered open, I forgot where I was. The soft silk sheets, the faint scent of something warm and unfamiliar, it all felt distant, like a dream I hadn't fully woken from. Then memory came crashing back. The wedding. The truth. Adrian. My chest tightened. I turned my head instinctively. The space beside me was empty. The sheets were slightly rumpled, but cold. He had been gone for a while. I sat up slowly, clutching the blanket to my chest, listening. Silence. Too quiet. Then. A faint scent drifted through the air. Coffee. Strong. Bitter. Grounding. By the time I gathered enough courage to leave the bedroom, my heart was already racing. I wasn't sure what I expected. Anger. Interrogation. Maybe even regret. But what I found instead was something entirely different. Adrian sat at the dining table, composed and calm, as if nothing had happened. Morning light filtered through the tall windows, softening the sharp lines of his face. Without the weight of the ceremony or the darkness of the night before, he looked less like the feared alpha people whispered about. More human. His tie hung loose around his neck. The top buttons of his shirt were undone. His hair, usually styled with precision, fell slightly over his forehead. He looked up when I entered. Sit. The word wasn't loud, but it carried quiet authority. My body moved before my thoughts could catch up. I walked over and sat across from him. Breakfast had already been prepared. Rice. Soup. Grilled fish. Side dishes arranged neatly across the table. I stared at the food, my appetite gone. Adrian poured a cup of coffee and slid it toward me. I hesitated. I don't drink coffee, I said softly. Then don't. His tone was neutral. But you should eat. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Not hostile. But heavy. I picked up my chopsticks, forcing myself to take a few bites just to fill the space between us. The only sound was the faint clink of porcelain and the quiet rhythm of his movements. I couldn't take it anymore. Why didn't you tell them? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Adrian didn't look up. Tell who? That I'm not Jason, I said, my voice wavering slightly. That this marriage is a lie. His chopsticks paused midair. Slowly, he set them down. Then he leaned back in his chair, his dark eyes locking onto mine. Sharp. Unyielding. Do you think I'm the kind of man who humiliates himself in front of hundreds of people? He asked quietly. My throat went dry. No. He nodded once. Good. His gaze didn't soften. The betrayal is mine to carry, he continued. Not something I'll put on display for the world to dissect. I looked down at the table. Guilt twisted in my chest. I'm sorry, I whispered. For a moment, I thought he would ignore me. But then. That apology isn't yours to give. I looked up, startled. His expression had changed again, not softer, but less cutting. You didn't abandon me, he said. You didn't make the decision. His eyes held mine, steady. You were forced into it. My chest tightened unexpectedly. No one had said that before. Not my parents. Not even myself. I had only blamed myself, for not resisting harder, for not refusing. But hearing it from him, it felt different. The rest of breakfast passed in quiet. But the silence no longer felt suffocating. Just unfamiliar. The mansion was larger than I had imagined. Endless hallways. High ceilings. Rooms filled with quiet elegance. And servants. So many servants. They bowed when I passed, their expressions respectful, their voices polite. Good morning, sir. Do you need anything, sir? Each time, I felt like an imposter. Like I was wearing someone else's life. Later that day, I found myself wandering without purpose. Until I reached a room filled with books. A library. The moment I stepped inside, something in me eased. Rows upon rows of shelves stretched toward the ceiling. The scent of paper and wood wrapped around me, familiar and comforting. I ran my fingers lightly along the spines of the books. This felt real. You like it? I froze. Adrian stood at the doorway. I hadn't heard him approach. Yes, I admitted quietly. I didn't expect. What? That you would have something like this. A faint smirk touched his lips. Because I'm a Mafia alpha? Heat rushed to my face. I didn't mean. It's fine. He stepped inside, his presence filling the space effortlessly. Most people assume I only deal in violence. I hesitated. Don't you? His eyes flickered with something unreadable. I deal in what's necessary. The answer was simple. But heavy. He walked past me, pulling a book from one of the shelves with practiced ease. You can use this room, he said. I blinked. Really? You'll be staying here, he replied. You should have somewhere that's yours. Something in my chest tightened again. Thank you, I said softly. He didn't respond. But he didn't take the words back either. That night, we shared the same room again. The same distance. The same unspoken understanding. He lay on one side of the bed. I stayed on the other. No touch. No words. At first, it was a relief. But as the days passed, the silence began to change. It wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with something I couldn't quite name. Something quiet. Something growing. Sometimes, I would turn slightly, watching him as he slept. His face relaxed, free from the cold composure he carried during the day. In those moments, he didn't look like a feared alpha. He looked like a man. A tired one. And I hated it. I hated the way my chest tightened when I looked at him. The way my thoughts lingered longer than they should. The way something inside me shifted, little by little. No, I whispered to myself one night, clutching the blanket tightly. This isn't real. This isn't love. This isn't mine. But even as I said the words, my heart refused to listen. Chapter 4. Cracks in the silence. The days settled into a quiet, unfamiliar rhythm. Adrian left early in the morning and returned late at night. I rarely asked where he went, and he never offered explanations. Yet his presence lingered everywhere, in the neatly arranged books left on my desk, in the warm tea that appeared beside me in the evenings, in the subtle way the servants treated me with growing respect. We lived like strangers. Strangers bound by a marriage neither of us had chosen. And yet, something was changing. One evening, I wandered into the greenhouse. It was hidden behind the main courtyard, a glass sanctuary filled with soft light and the faint scent of earth and flowers. Rows of orchids bloomed quietly, their delicate petals catching the fading sunlight. I knelt beside them, gently brushing my fingers over the leaves. I had always liked plants. They didn't judge. They didn't expect. They simply existed, and grew. You like flowers? I startled at the voice behind me. Turning, I saw Adrian standing at the entrance, his tall frame framed by the glass panels. His sleeves were rolled up, his tie loosened, as if he had just returned. Yes, I admitted softly. He stepped inside. Slowly. Carefully. As if he didn't quite belong in a place so gentle. They're quiet, I added after a moment. They don't ask anything from me. His gaze lingered on me, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. Then, to my surprise, he crouched beside me. They're stronger than they look, he said, studying the orchids with unexpected focus. They survive in harsh conditions. People just underestimate them. The word struck deeper than they should have. Because for the first time, I wondered if he was talking about me. I glanced at him. He was already looking at me. Our faces were closer than I realized. Too close. My breath caught. I quickly turned away, pretending to adjust one of the pots. But my heart wouldn't slow down. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the way he had looked at me in the greenhouse. Not cold. Not distant. But, aware. A week later, something happened that shattered whatever fragile calm I had built. We were in the car, returning from one of his gatherings. I had stayed quiet the entire evening, keeping to myself, careful not to draw attention. The city lights blurred past the window. Then. A sharp sound. Loud. Violent. Gunfire. My body froze. Down. Adrian's voice cut through the chaos. Before I could react, his hand pressed against my shoulder, forcing me down against the seat. His body covered mine instantly. Solid. Unyielding. Protective. More shots rang out. The car swerved. Voices shouted outside. But all I could hear was his heartbeat. Steady. Strong. Right against my ear. His scent filled the air. Overwhelming. Warm. It wrapped around me, anchoring me in the chaos. I didn't realize I had grabbed onto him until my fingers tightened against his shirt. Stay still, he murmured. His voice was lower now. Softer. It'll be over soon. And it was. Just as suddenly as it began, the noise stopped. Silence fell. But I couldn't move. My body trembled uncontrollably, my mind still caught in the echo of gunfire. It's over, Adrian said again, more gently this time. His hand brushed lightly over my hair. A simple gesture. But it unraveled something inside me. You're safe, Julian. Julian. Not Jason. Not a mistake. Me. I slowly lifted my head, my vision still unsteady. Why? I whispered. My voice barely existed. Why did you protect me like that? He frowned slightly, as if the question didn't make sense. Because you're my husband. The answer was immediate. Simple. Certain. My chest tightened painfully. Those words. They shouldn't have meant anything. This marriage was an arrangement. A lie. A necessity. And yet. They stayed with me. That night, the silence between us felt different. He lay on his side of the bed. I lay on mine. But neither of us slept. After a long moment, I turned slightly. He was already looking at me. Our eyes met in the dim light. No words. Just, understanding. Something fragile. Something dangerous. Thank you, I whispered. For the car. For the protection. For everything I couldn't say out loud. His lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile. You don't need to thank me for that. My heart pounded. The air felt too heavy. Too close. His hand shifted slightly. As if he wanted to reach for me. But he stopped. His fingers curled into a fist instead. Holding himself back. And somehow, that hurt more than anything. Before I could think, before I could stop myself, I moved. Slowly. Carefully. My hand reached across the space between us. Just a little. Just enough. For my fingers to brush against his. The contact was light. Barely there. But it sent a shock through me. He stilled. His gaze darkened. For a moment, I thought he would pull away. He didn't. Instead, his fingers shifted. Turning. Intertwining with mine. Firm. Certain. Warm. We stayed like that. Hand in hand. Neither of us speaking. Neither of us moving. And in that quiet, fragile moment, I felt something I had sworn I never would. Not fear. Not obligation. Not emptiness. But something softer. Something terrifying. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. Chapter 5. The truth I can't deny. There are moments in life you cannot take back. Moments that change everything, quietly, almost gently, until you realize nothing will ever be the same again. Holding his hand that night was one of them. After that, the distance between us didn't disappear. But it shifted. Subtly. Irrevocably. Adrian still kept his composure. He still spoke little, still carried himself with that same controlled authority the world feared. But with me, there were differences. Small ones. Almost unnoticeable. At breakfast, he would ask, "Did you sleep well?" When he returned late, there would be a brief pause at the doorway, as if he was looking for me. Sometimes, I found books on my desk. Novels I had only mentioned once. He remembered. And I started waiting. I would tell myself I wasn't. That I just happened to be near the door when he came home. That I just happened to prepare tea. That I just happened to notice the sound of his footsteps. But lies are fragile things. They break easily. Especially when your heart is no longer on your side. One evening, I sat in the library, a book open in my hands. I hadn't turned the page in several minutes. The fire crackled softly, filling the room with warmth. Then, "I've noticed something." His voice. Low. Close. I didn't startle this time. I was getting used to him. Slowly. Dangerously. "You read often," Adrian said, stepping beside me. "It keeps me company," I replied quietly. "Books don't expect anything. They don't judge." He didn't respond immediately. I felt his gaze linger. Heavy. Intent. Then, without asking, he sat beside me. Close enough that our shoulders brushed. My breath hitched. I didn't move. "What are you reading?" he asked. "A story," I said softly, "about someone who falls in love with a person they shouldn't." A faint smirk touched his lips. "That sounds like half of all stories." "Maybe," I murmured. "But it feels different when it's real." The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. My grip tightened on the book, my eyes fixed on the page though I couldn't see a single word. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then, his hand brushed against mine. Light. Careful. I froze. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. "Julian." My name. Soft. almost cautious. Do you regret this marriage? The question cut deeper than I expected. I should have said yes. That had always been the answer. This marriage was forced. Built on lies. On betrayal. On everything I hated. But when I looked at him, when I saw the way his eyes held mine, steady, searching, the truth slipped out. No. His breath caught. Just slightly. But I noticed. For a long moment, we didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't look away. Then, slowly, carefully, he leaned closer. I should have stopped him. I should have pulled away. I should have remembered everything I had sworn. But I didn't. His lips brushed against mine. Soft. Tentative. A question. Not a demand. My heart felt like it would shatter. And instead of retreating, I answered. I tilted my head. Closing the distance. The kiss deepened. Warm. Unsteady. Real. His hand rose, cradling my jaw, his thumb brushing gently against my skin as if committing it to memory. I clutched at his shirt, grounding myself in the moment. In him. Everything we had been holding back. Every glance. Every silence. Every unspoken word. It all spilled into that single kiss. When we finally pulled apart, I was breathless. My lips tingled. My thoughts were gone. His forehead rested against mine. Julian, he whispered, his voice rough. I don't want to hurt you. My chest tightened. But if we keep going, he continued, his breath uneven, I won't be able to stop. My hands trembled. But I didn't pull away. Then don't stop, I whispered. Something in his eyes changed. Darkened. Deepened. He kissed me again. This time. There was no hesitation. His arms pulled me closer, as if distance itself had become unbearable. My body responded before my mind could catch up, leaning into him, seeking the warmth I had once feared. But then, he stopped. Abruptly. His hands tightened into fists. His breathing uneven. No, he said hoarsely. Not like this. I blinked, dazed. What? He turned away from me, his shoulders tense. You don't understand what this means, he said. His voice was strained. Controlled. Barely. I've already been betrayed once, he continued. I won't mistake desire for something deeper. Not again. The words hurt. More than they should have. I'm not him, I said quietly. I'm not Jason. He went still. But he didn't turn back. I know, he said after a moment. And that's exactly why I won't rush this. Silence fell again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was filled with something fragile. Something growing. I sat there, my lips still warm from his, my heart pounding with a truth I could no longer deny. I loved him. And that terrified me more than anything else. Chapter 6. The one he chose. Peace never lasts long. Not when your happiness is built on something the world tried to take from you. That day felt too quiet. The kind of quiet that settles before a storm. I sat in the study, a book open on my lap, but my eyes drifted toward the window. Outside, autumn had painted the garden in gold. Leaves fell slowly, carried by the wind like fragments of something ending. For once, my heart felt light. Weeks had passed since that night in the library. Since the kiss. Since everything between us changed. Adrian no longer kept his distance. Not completely. There were quiet touches now. Fingers brushing against mine when passing a cup. A hand resting briefly at my waist. A glance that lingered just a second too long. And at night. We were no longer strangers sharing a bed. I had begun to believe it. That maybe. Just maybe. This forced marriage had become something real. Then the door opened. Abrupt. Sharp. Sir. The butler's voice trembled slightly. Jason is here. Everything inside me went cold. Jason. My twin. The golden child. The one who abandoned everything. And left me to take his place. I stood slowly, my fingers tightening around the edge of the desk. Where is he? In the main hall. Each step I took felt heavier than the last. Not with fear. But with something else. Something old. Something bitter. When I entered the hall. He was already there. Jason. He looked different. Thinner. Less polished. The confidence he once wore so effortlessly was cracked at the edges. But when his eyes met mine, he flinched. Julian, he said softly. My name sounded strange on his lips. Unfamiliar. Why are you here? I asked. My voice was calm. Too calm. Before he could answer, footsteps echoed behind me. Slow. Steady. Adrian. The moment he entered, the air in the room shifted. Heavy. Commanding. Unavoidable. Jason's expression changed instantly. Hope. Desperation. Adrian, he called, stepping forward. Stop. The word was quiet. But absolute. Jason froze. Adrian's gaze was cold. Colder than I had ever seen it. Don't call my name so casually, he said. You lost that right the moment you abandoned me. Jason's lips parted. I made a mistake, he said quickly. I didn't understand what I was giving up. His voice trembled. The man I left with, he betrayed me. He took everything. I have nothing now. Silence. Then. Please, Jason continued, stepping forward again. Give me another chance. My hands clenched at my sides. Before I could speak, Adrian did. You speak of betrayal, he said slowly, stepping closer. But you were the one who betrayed me first. Jason faltered. You humiliated me, Adrian continued. Abandoned me on our wedding day. Treated everything as if it meant nothing. His voice didn't rise. But it cut deeper with every word. And now you return, he finished, because you've been discarded. Jason's face twisted. But you loved me, he said. A pause. I thought I did. The words landed like a final blow. Jason's gaze snapped toward me. And the bitterness returned. For him, he demanded. Julian? He's nothing compared to me. He always has been. Something inside me stilled. For years. I had stayed silent. Endured. Accepted. But not anymore. Enough. My voice cut through the room. Clear. Steady. Unshaken. Jason looked at me like he didn't recognize me. You think you were the favored one, I said. You think you were the one who mattered. I stepped forward. Slowly. But what have you ever given? I continued. You took everything. The love. The attention. The future. My chest tightened, but I didn't stop. And what did you leave behind? Silence. Nothing, I answered for him. Only broken promises. His expression faltered. Yes, I said, my voice softer now but no less firm. Our parents chose you. They loved you more. The truth hung in the air. Heavy. Unavoidable. But love isn't favoritism, I continued. It's sacrifice. It's patience. It's staying when things get hard. My hands trembled slightly. But I didn't look away. You never did any of that. Tears burned behind my eyes. But they didn't fall. I may not have been the one they wanted, I said. But I am not nothing. A pause. I am Julian. And this time, my voice didn't shake. I am someone worth choosing. Silence filled the hall. Then, warmth. Adrian's arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me gently back against him. Solid. Certain. I chose him. His voice was calm. But absolute. Jason's face paled. Adrian's grip on me tightened slightly. He is my husband, he continued. My equal. My partner. Each word settled into my chest. Steadying me. He is everything you never were, Adrian said. Jason took a step back. Shaken. No, he whispered. This isn't. It is. Adrian's gaze hardened. You had your chance. A beat of silence. And you threw it away. The finality in his voice left no room for argument. Leave, he said. Jason didn't move at first. His eyes lingered on me. Anger. Jealousy. Regret. But no words came. Then, he turned. And walked away. The door closed behind him. And just like that, the past was gone. The silence that followed felt different. Lighter. Freer. My body trembled slightly. Not from fear. But from release. Adrian turned me gently to face him. His hand lifted, tilting my chin up. You were incredible, he said quietly. That was all it took. The tears came. I was afraid, I admitted. That I would always be less. His expression softened. Truly softened. You are everything, he said. His thumb brushed away my tears. Slow. Careful. My heart, he added. My life. My breath caught. And you, I whispered, clutching his shirt. You gave me something no one ever did. His gaze deepened. You gave me love. For a moment. The world disappeared. Then he smiled. Faint. But real. Then let's not lose it. And before I could respond, he kissed me. Not hesitant. Not uncertain. Certain. Like a promise. And this time, there was no fear. No doubt. Only love. Real. Undeniable. Mine.